I accidentally discovered that the ice-cold CEO was actually a succubus. To satisfy her cravings, she started hiring me. $5,000 for a hug. $10,000 for a kiss. Looking at that impossibly perfect face, I immediately swept her into my arms and kissed her over and over. A job where I get paid to do what I love. I'd be crazy to turn that down. Later, when a colleague came looking for her to report on work, she hid under my desk, her fingers tracing up my calf. Watching her struggle to breathe, I gently tugged the little tail behind her back. Be good now. I'll make sure you're satisfied at lunch. But she glared at me with those accusing eyes. You weren't like this before. You must have someone else now. Remembering when I first discovered she was a succubus, my primal instincts took over. And I satisfied her ruthlessly, anywhere and everywhere. Now karma's finally caught up with me. Meanwhile, my colleague was searching the entire company for Vivian. And even came up to me asking, "Hey Daniel, have you seen CEO Sullivan anywhere?" I shook my head. Vivian showed no fear of being discovered, growing bolder as she playfully tickled my palm. My colleague looked confused. Why is your face so red? I just kept shaking my head. Under the desk, Vivian had wrapped her tail around my leg. And it was slowly creeping higher. My colleague refused to leave. Vivian suddenly bit my finger with her sharp little fang, sending tingles through me. I couldn't take it anymore, and quietly crawled under my desk. Seeing me disappear beneath the desk, my colleague shook his head in horror. Another one losing it during work hours. Since this kind of breakdown wasn't uncommon, I didn't attract much attention. No one knew that I had pinned Vivian, her face flushed crimson, into the corner, kissing her breathless. Still want to tease me? I lifted her chin. Had enough yet? Vivian hadn't transformed back into human form yet, her tiny demon legs wiggling, and they felt incredible to touch. But she turned her face away from my hand. She didn't like me touching her legs, because they were proof her powers weren't fully developed. So far she'd only managed to seduce one human, which is why the horns on her head were still small and round. I continued stroking Vivian's legs, reassuring her, it's okay. Small is adorable too. Vivian completely ignored me. Small legs but a big temper. I started playing with her little tail instead. She immediately gasped. Isn't it because you won't satisfy me properly? What kind of accusation is that? Modern succubi apparently need 3 meals a day to keep up with the times. But my back can't handle it. I pretended not to hear her clearly. What did you just say? Vivian looked down. Nothing. She nestled her face into my palm, her lips pressed into a rosy pout, her face radiant as a peach blossom. Staring straight at me, I said I want more. Vivian's secretary seemed to have some serious misconceptions about me, ever since he walked in on me in the office, with my tie binding Vivian's wrists. He'd been respectfully solemn. Thank you for your hard work, Daniel. I wanted to explain that Vivian was too wild, and I'd tied her up to make her behave. But with that knowing look on his face, he said, you don't need to say anything. Daniel, I understand completely. I was flustered. Understand what? He leaned closer to my ear. Isn't that what they call a power dynamic relationship? This was a massive misunderstanding. Since lunch breaks often left me exhausted, Vivian had her secretary take charge of my meals. And he was perceptive. Since I was so vigorous, naturally I needed to replenish my energy. So when Vivian was curled up under the desk, waiting for all the colleagues to leave for lunch, before sneaking out, that's when the secretary appeared, presenting me with a mountain of food. Daniel, you need to fuel up. He then turned and pulled out a stack of documents, handing them to Vivian. Please sign these, ma'am. CEO Sullivan. No wonder he made it as a secretary. Even when no one could find Vivian, he had her habits completely figured out, managing to get documents signed without missing a beat. Vivian grabbed the pen and signed, then coldly asked him, you know what to say and what not to say, right? He nodded respectfully. I do, but I'll need a raise. The moment CEO Sullivan's secretary left, Vivian's entire expression transformed. She eagerly ushered me into her office, sitting across from me watching me eat. But somehow, not only was her face getting redder and redder, her tail and horns were poking out again. One look and I knew she was getting ideas. I viciously bit into a piece of meat. What are you daydreaming about now? She didn't answer. Just slid closer and tugged at my collar. Her tail wagging behind her like a puppy's. Kind of adorable. I picked up a chicken drumstick. Chewing as I asked, hungry? She shook her head. Why was my top button suddenly undone? Why was my hand suddenly pressed against her chest? Vivian nuzzled her burning face against my neck. Her voice dripping with sweetness. I'm starving too. Won't you let me taste you first? Signing a master-servant contract with Vivian was an accident. I'd only been at the company 2 years back then. Still just a hard-working grunt. One night I worked too late. And Vivian drove me home. On the way, I noticed something was off. She asked me, flushed, what cologne are you wearing? Cologne? I wasn't wearing any cologne. I thought for a moment. Then told her the brand of my laundry detergent. Vivian looked slightly disappointed, but by the time she got me to my door, her breathing had become unnaturally rapid. She could barely stand, her eyes wet as she looked at me, looking like she was. And then, I witnessed her transform into a succubus right before my eyes. Since the clothes on her body were absolutely obscene, I quickly pulled her inside. But she actually explained to me, I usually wear underwear so I can shift forms easily. Pretty professional, actually. Seeing I wasn't budging, Vivian pulled out her ultimate move. The sight made my blood run hot. Absolutely intoxicating. She crawled toward me, her tail swaying back and forth, her eyes unnervingly bright. Would you sign a contract with me? Even though she was incredibly alluring, I still shook my head, carefully explaining that I preferred things cleaner. As a result, Vivian grew bolder and climbed onto my lap. There's no one else. She tested the waters, caressing my skin. I've never been with a human before. If this keeps up, I'll die. But only you smell right to me. Will you help me? I curiously squeezed the tip of her tail. All right. How can I help? She couldn't suppress a soft moan, though her fingers were anything but innocent. You don't have to do anything. Just let me feed off you. But why didn't anyone tell me? That succubi consume everything? I couldn't resist kissing her. Taking advantage of my weakened state, she seized the opportunity to seal the contract with me. After our first time together, Vivian absolutely glowed. She shyly showed me the mark on her body. Now every time you get close to me, it glows. Oh, how wonderful. I was exhausted to death and couldn't care less. She must have thought I was asleep, slowly wrapping her arms around me from behind, even placing her tail in my palm, whispering softly, I like you. After working so hard to satisfy Vivian at lunch, by evening she was clinging to me, wanting to come to my place. I tactfully turned her down. It's Friday, I've got plans with my buddy for dinner. I didn't know what was wrong with succubi. The moment they hear about dinner plans, they think you're cheating. Not to mention I was just getting food. And even if I was doing something else, it was none of her business. I only signed a contract with her. We weren't actually together, but she wouldn't let it go, insisting on coming with me. Before meeting my buddy, I specifically warned her, remember, don't let him know you're my boss. He'll get the wrong idea. Vivian looked slightly hurt, but still nodded. The moment Vivian and I sat down, my buddy's eyes lit up. Daniel, how do you know such a gorgeous girl? I glanced at Vivian. Just call me whatever you normally call me, and we'll be fine. Vivian nodded, poured me a glass of water, carefully handed it to me, then called out, Master. For a moment, everything went dark. My heart, which had been barely hanging on, finally flatlined. I had nowhere to hide. Could only shakily lift my head to look at my buddy. And my buddy looked completely stunned. His face screaming. How did you train her like this? Vivian didn't understand why. I had a flash of inspiration. Homeroom teacher. She said homeroom teacher. I kicked Vivian's foot under the table. Right, Viv, I shouldn't have kicked her. Watching her suddenly flush bright red, I realized I'd just turned her on. My buddy looked skeptical, but eventually stopped interrogating me. He handed the menu to Vivian. So, beautiful, what do you like to eat? Order whatever you want. Vivian hesitated and glanced at me. I like eating my masters. I covered her mouth. She said she likes whatever the homeroom teacher orders. I quickly handed the menu back to my buddy. Just the two of us ordering is fine. That dinner felt like a battle zone. And I rushed to drag Vivian out of there. My buddy looked back and forth between Vivian and me. Then suddenly whispered in my ear, "This one's way better than the last one." I was confused. What last one? He nudged my side, grinning wickedly. Weren't you dating some CEO? That one looked like she knew her way around. He was talking about CEO Harper from the company next door. CEO Harper and I only dated for a few days. Then broke up after I discovered she was an experienced succubus. Later I learned she regularly sold herself to seduce business rivals. Among company employees, people play different roles. Some are workhorses, others are hard to describe. My buddy and I were deep in conversation, completely forgetting that succubi have better hearing than humans. Sure enough, after following me home, Vivian asked me sadly, "You have someone else, don't you?" That really wasn't fair. With Vivian wrapped around me like this. Even if I had the desire, I didn't have the stamina. Vivian rested her chin on my shoulder. "Fine if you won't go public at work. But why hide it from your friends too?" The main issue was I didn't know what to say. I couldn't exactly tell people I was her master. Vivian sounded a little lonely. Other succubi get to be their guy's girlfriend. But I can't? I was getting more confused by the second. "Vivian, isn't ours a purely transactional master-servant relationship?" I caressed her chest. "Do succubi even do romance?" For once, Vivian pushed me away. I'm not some cheap succubus. Who she was referring to was crystal clear. An angry Vivian wasn't scary at all. Her tail drooped onto the couch, swaying back and forth, practically begging me to come comfort her. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, teasing her legs. "Really mad?" She huffed coldly, ignoring me. But her tail was wagging so happily, obviously wanting me close. I pretended to let her go. "Well, if you're that angry, guess we're skipping dinner tonight?" At the last second before I closed the bedroom door, Vivian stopped me. She'd already changed. The corners of her eyes flushed pink. Whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. "You're not going anywhere." She hooked her arms around my waist. "You owe me." I asked her what kind of compensation. Vivian said I'd be feeding her extra tonight. After everything was over, I learned two things. First, never piss off an angry succubus. Second, that tail isn't just for decoration. Vivian seemed to be pursuing me. Not only did she cut my workload in half, she also showered me with gifts. Though they were all things succubi liked. But she quickly discovered that even with a lighter workload, I still wasn't leaving early to be with her. On this matter, I informed her that a proper office worker distributes their work evenly throughout the day. Don't even think about docking my attendance pay. Seeing those tactics weren't working, she tried a different approach, inviting me shopping. But I was an idiot. Truly. Why did I ever trust a succubus when she said shopping for food supplies actually meant food supplies? Under the massive pink sign, Vivian looked perfectly innocent. I heard human couples need novelty in dating. And I found out this is the biggest supply store in the city. She eagerly pulled me inside. "Let's buy a lot. Then Master will be willing to eat with me more, right?" I had a feeling she still didn't quite understand what dating meant. To avoid running into anyone I knew, I put on a face mask. While Vivian browsed, I huddled in a corner. When a familiar mocking voice rang out, "Daniel." I looked closer. Wasn't this CEO Harper? I quickly waved my hand. "Miss, you've got the wrong person." CEO Harper walked right up to me and swept back her hair. "Stop pretending, Daniel. I'd recognize your scent even if you were Ash." Why was she going around sniffing people? These succubi were truly rude. She looked dreamy. When I ran into Vivian earlier, I could smell something was off. "You signed a contract with her, didn't you?" I said. "So what if I did?" CEO Harper looked somewhat insulted. "You passed over me, a high-class succubus with mature legs, to get seduced by her." Honestly, I really didn't understand succubi. What did bigger legs matter? I wasn't some highway. Seeing my indifferent expression, CEO Harper suddenly smiled. "You're not serious about her, are you? You think she actually likes you?" She revealed the inside scoop. For a low-level succubus like her, If she can't pass the year-end evaluation, she'll be expelled from the clan. And compared to regular feeding, signing a contract gives her way more energy. Especially if the master develops feelings for her, she'll receive even more energy. So that's how it was. But no wonder these succubi were so cunning. Every single one of them managing to become a CEO. Vivian had finished paying without me noticing, and rushed over to us, asking CEO Harper in a panic, "What did you tell my master?" Then she turned to me, trembling, "Master, do you know everything now?" My heart turned ice cold. I knew it. How could a succubus ever be sincere? I'd wasted all these days, seriously considering whether I should be with her. I nodded weakly at Vivian. "It's fine. I never had any expectations anyway." Vivian's face went even paler. She held a bag full of supplies in one hand, while the other tentatively tugged at my sleeve. "Please don't be disgusted by me." But what did this have to do with disgust? CEO Harper looked at me shamelessly, confronting Vivian, then gave me a flirtatious glance. "When you come to your senses, you can always come find me. I'll be waiting for you in the next life." Vivian and I returned home in silence. Under her disbelieving gaze, I asked, "Can contracts that you succubi sign be terminated?" Vivian's cold expression filled with obvious distress. She tentatively embraced me, her tail quietly wrapping tight around my waist. "Please don't abandon me." So the contract could be broken. I gently pulled away from her arms. "You shouldn't have hidden things from me. Tricked me into signing a contract. Why couldn't there be any real emotion?" I didn't know when it started, but I'd noticed this beautiful superior, who was always secretly watching me. I wasn't without feelings for her. But privately, she'd been hiding so much from me. When I'd lost all hope, she suddenly transformed into a succubus in my home, asking me to help her. I never dared hope she actually liked me that much. Why did she deceive me about the evaluation? And lie about wanting to date me, making me fall for her just to collect more energy? Vivian appeared to let me go, but her tail wrapped even tighter, leaving me completely immobilized. My expression hardened. "Let me go." Vivian's eyes reddened slightly. She obediently retracted her tail, explaining softly, "I'm scared you'll leave me. I'll try harder." She tentatively hooked my pinky finger. "Can Master cooperate with me too?" "Try harder at what?" "Try harder to actually love me?" And she still wanted me to cooperate. The angrier I got, the more I shoved the bag of supplies into her arms, unhappily telling her to leave. "Don't come to my place anymore." Vivian completely panicked, rubbing against me frantically, like a pitiful puppy. "Please, I'm begging you, don't leave me." Her voice hoarse. "Without you, I can't survive." She was clearly trying to hold on to me, but she rubbed herself until her face was flushed. She greedily inhaled my scent, muttering constantly, "It's so hot. Don't you want to see my mark, Master? It's burning up because of you." The end of the year was approaching. If she couldn't collect enough energy from me, she really wouldn't survive. I swallowed the complicated emotions welling up inside, deciding to temporarily return to a purely transactional master-servant relationship with her. So I bit her lip hard. "If you want to feed, behave yourself. And don't bring those supplies into the bedroom." She looked at me pitifully. "Can I bring just one?" The saleswoman said Master would like it. I relented. "Fine. Just one." But when she had me so desperate with desire I couldn't escape, I suddenly realized something. I stroked her chest and asked, "What did you call me in front of the saleswoman?" She smiled innocently. "Master, of course." Her gentle voice echoed in my ear. "You don't like me calling you that, Master?" CEO Harper must have lost her mind, because she started pursuing me again. She apparently couldn't accept losing to a small-legged succubus. Colleagues kept coming to my desk to watch the drama unfold. This meant Vivian couldn't hide under my desk for private time with me anymore. Not only that, but CEO Harper also frequently visited our company during lunch breaks. Vivian coldly watched her from the office doorway. "This involves company secrets. You can't enter my office." CEO Harper said she wouldn't go in, standing calmly at the door, watching me about to close the door with amusement. As succubi have excellent hearing, especially someone like me with these big legs. This time, Vivian had no way to feed in the office. At lunch either. She sat beside me, watching me eat the 4 dishes and soup the secretary prepared, her eyes full of longing. I want to eat too. She poked me with her tail. Master, should I redecorate the office with better soundproofing materials? I shook my head. No need. I'll speak calmly. No succubus would be shameless enough to eavesdrop on others. Vivian fell silent. I continued my attack. There's no way, right? No way someone's jealous because they don't have a master? Why not examine yourself for the reason? Isn't it because you only grew a pair of big horns that look impressive but are useless? Plus I heard Harper Company's performance has been declining lately. Haven't you been unable to attract male employees anymore? I lifted Vivian's chin. Baby, you're completely different from that kind of cheap succubus. Vivian's face grew redder and redder. From outside came the secretary's exaggerated voice. CEO Harper, are you all right? Are you overheating? Let me take you to the lounge. Probably not from heat. More likely from rage. Whatever. But very quickly, I couldn't laugh anymore. In the corner of the office, Vivian wrapped around me, making me call her baby countless times. Even so, CEO Harper still wouldn't give up. Taking advantage of Vivian being in a meeting, she cornered me in the lounge. She seriously closed the door. Daniel, you're actually playing hard to get, aren't you? Yeah, sure, whatever. She loosened her tie. There's never been a man I couldn't seduce. Do you dare let me truly seduce you once? Honestly, what was glorious about that? I nodded helplessly. Then hurry up. My time is valuable. Can't waste it on useless people. I suspected. CEO Harper and Vivian had the same teacher. But clearly CEO Harper was the better student. She not only knew how to change outfits in the blink of an eye, but also knew how to set the atmosphere. Purple lights overhead kept flashing. CEO Harper, wearing a tight dress, knelt there, every sentence calling out, darling. But I remained completely unmoved. Not that CEO Harper wasn't seductive, but I'd just satisfied Vivian at lunch, so my mood was as calm as still water. Seeing I wasn't tempted, CEO Harper gave me a flirtatious glance. Don't you want to touch my big legs? I reluctantly touched them briefly. Vivian burst into the lounge, her face green with fury. The truth was, my hand was resting on CEO Harper's large, gleaming leg. The secretary looked completely unfazed, quietly helping close the door. CEO Harper, enjoying the chaos, innocently waved at Vivian. Big legs come with big problems. I actually envy your tiny little legs. They don't weigh anything. She winked at me. Haven't touched enough yet? That's understandable. You don't usually get the chance to touch legs this big. Vivian's eyes had already turned red. She asked me hoarsely, do you really like big legs that much? I couldn't answer. I felt like I was communicating with 2 goats. But CEO Harper's triumph didn't last long, because the secretary quickly pulled up the lounge's security footage. On the massive projection screen, CEO Harper was trying incredibly hard. But I wasn't just not paying attention. I even yawned. Even so, Vivian ignored me for the entire day. It wasn't until nighttime that she came knocking on my bedroom door, clutching my clothes. The corners of her eyes were red, looking absolutely starved. My clothes were wrinkled and crumpled, as if they'd been through something terrible. She asked me slowly, you find my small legs disgusting, don't you? That really wasn't true. Finding it amusing, I reached to touch her legs, but she slapped my hand away. She swept her gaze over my entire body, her expression absurdly grim. I had a bad feeling. Her eyes looked like they could draw silk threads. Since you like big legs, Master will just have to work harder. Vivian gave me a week off. That entire week I couldn't escape my house. Not until we'd tried the very last toy did she finally let me go. Her legs still hadn't grown much bigger. She was utterly disappointed, finally realizing it was because I didn't love her enough. Only when her master loved her could she absorb enough energy for her legs to develop. So she hugged me and asked, do small legs not deserve to be loved? I was completely helpless, so I seriously explained the logic to her. We humans are different from you. You lied to me before, so how can you expect me to love you? To be loved, you have to give love first. Vivian froze. She carefully nuzzled into the hollow of my neck. Her voice sad, but I do love Master. I didn't quite understand. Hadn't she pretended to like me? Just to make me fall for her? I shook my head at her. You can't fool me again. Vivian anxiously held me tight. I'm not fooling you. I loved Master from the very first moment I saw you. I really love you. I was completely bewildered. Then what were you worried about before? When I found out the truth. Vivian pressed her lips together. Actually, I'm a succubus with a congenital defect. She hesitated a bit, her voice very small. I'm frigid. She was frigid. So what was that entire week of torture about? I didn't believe it. She hooked my hand. I'm not lying. Before I met Master. Apart from changing outfits, I failed every subject. Vivian's face reddened, but then I discovered. Just thinking about Master, I could get aroused again. Even when I saw Master at the company. I couldn't control myself. I avoided you before because of this. Vivian continued, not only that. My legs are also smaller than other succubi. She tentatively hooked my finger. I never dared tell Master these things. Precisely because I was scared you'd find me disgusting. She seemed to have made a decision. I've thought it over. After this year-end evaluation, I'll go back for horn enlargement surgery. I was truly speechless. I'd wasted all that time feeling sad, when all she was hiding was just this secret. I kissed her cheek, shaking my head at her. You don't need horn surgery. I want to tell you that I really don't care. That your legs are small. But Vivian looked even more dejected. She was soaked with tears. Master still naturally prefers big legs. With me, it's true. I still can't compete with these succubi. Until the day before the year-end evaluation. Vivian stayed by my side working hard. She was like a happy puppy wagging its tail. Asking me, Master loves me now too, right? I turned away and said, no. But legs can't lie. Ever since we cleared up that misunderstanding. Her legs had been growing bigger day by day. Vivian excitedly went for her evaluation. The next day she was sent back home. She clung to my arm ingratiatingly. Can Master come back with me? They don't believe I've already found a Master. My appearance made the succubi very calm. One succubus was lecturing her son. Do you see that? Even she managed to find a Master, and you still won't study hard. Vivian gave me a tour of their school. The first classroom was teaching outfit changes. Full of goddesses I didn't dare look at. The second classroom taught language skills. Through the door crack came calls of sweetheart and darling. The third classroom taught about human anatomy. All the projected materials were the kind that couldn't be broadcast. The fourth classroom had several human teachers. I pulled Vivian away immediately, very seriously telling her, this environment is illegal in our human world. She seemed to half understand, leaning into my ear, whispering, my grades were too poor. I wasn't qualified to skip these classes. In the hallway we ran into Vivian's old teacher. When he heard that Vivian had only ever had me as her Master from start to finish. The way he looked at me changed. He looked at Vivian's legs that had grown considerably, took a sharp breath and said to me, Sir, would you like to buy some kidney supplements? I looked closely. Wasn't this handsome middle-aged man the famous owner of some pharmaceutical factory? Specialized in selling kidney supplements. Pretty good business sense. Wherever there were succubi, the humans there would need kidney supplements. But I wouldn't buy any. I was different from regular succubus masters. I was pretty stubborn. Vivian passed her evaluation for the first time. Though she only got the bare minimum score, Vivian was still thrilled. I wish I'd been this optimistic. When I barely passed at vocational school, she affectionately wrapped her arms around my waist. Let's go home and have a big feast to celebrate, okay? I was such an idiot, truly. How could a big feast from a succubus's mouth possibly be a normal meal? When my big feast ended, her big feast was just beginning. I didn't like how she drank wine. Because wine spilled on skin was really cold. She used to be the silent type. But ever since confirming my feelings, she dared to say anything. Other things I could tolerate. But I really couldn't stand when she said, Master, are my big legs powerful? I started suspecting I was actually an ox. So obsessed with leg size. Vivian sometimes didn't seem very bright. But her beautiful face more than made up for it. During one night where I couldn't resist, I agreed to be her boyfriend. The next day, she planned to announce it to the entire company in a meeting. I was about to stop her, when a colleague beside me got distracted by a photo sent from afar. Not just him, all the colleagues received private photos of CEO Harper from the neighboring company, showing off her big legs. The poses were carefully arranged, with several lines of large pink text. Workaholic CEO shows off big legs, exposing danger. After hours, cold by day. Senior turns out to be a succubus. Scan the code to apply. Immediately play with succubi. Behind this photo was clearly someone living their best life, pointing the way. Corporate competition was truly ruthless. CEO Harper was actually using this method to poach employees from Vivian's company. Even more terrifying was, throughout the vast office, the sound of code scanning echoed repeatedly. The secretary suddenly clapped his hands. Everyone stopped scanning. A qualified secretary helps the company retain employees. Under the curious gazes of colleagues, the secretary cleared his throat. Listen everyone. CEO Harper is just decorative, no substance. Decorative pillows look pretty but serve no purpose. Vivian, on the other hand, lost her composure. She asked the secretary with a trembling voice, "How do you know? Were you planning to jump ship?" The secretary shook his head, pulled a USB drive from his pocket, and handed it to Vivian. "This is Harper Company's financial plan for next year." Vivian fell silent. Vivian quietly accepted it. Vivian copied the USB. Vivian's jaw dropped. She asked the secretary quietly, "How did you get so much experience?" The secretary winked. "I told her I liked roleplay. I played a corporate spy. She played the CEO." He shrugged. "Too bad she couldn't tie me up." Due to CEO Harper's disruption during the meeting, Vivian didn't get to announce that she and I were dating. But she wouldn't give up. At the department's afternoon tea, she came over to chat with us. Colleagues were discussing succubi. I heard succubi are pretty wild in private. Logically, the experience with a succubus should be amazing, right? A colleague suddenly asked me, "Daniel, quietly tell us, is the experience with a succubus good?" I glanced shyly at Vivian and nodded, "Very good." But I quickly realized, wait, why were they asking me? No one knew about my relationship with Vivian yet. A colleague teased me, "Oh, don't hide it anymore. Wasn't CEO Harper chasing you before?" This was a huge misunderstanding. Colleagues crowded around. "I'm telling you, CEO Harper still looks pretty hot. Should we scan the code and check it out?" Watching Vivian's face grow greener, I could only stubbornly deny it. "It's not CEO Harper." After a moment of silence, the colleagues erupted again. "There are other succubi around? No wonder Daniel looks exhausted all the time." "That's it, isn't it? I often see CEO Sullivan calling Daniel into her office, staying there all through lunch." The chatty colleague realized the issue. His face went blank, looking back and forth between Vivian and me. I grew more and more embarrassed. Vivian's face grew redder and redder. Then the chatty colleague shook his head. "Impossible. CEO Sullivan is so cold. Definitely not a succubus." Another colleague chimed in, "Right. Daniel obviously doesn't like CEO Sullivan's type." The corners of Vivian's eyes reddened slightly. The colleague added, "Daniel likes the aggressive type, right?" "I get you." Vivian looked at me sadly, her expression seeming to say, "Master, say something." It wasn't convenient for me to say much. She pressed her lips tightly together, suddenly speaking up, "Am I not aggressive?" The colleague smiled cheerfully. "CEO Sullivan, you're so approachable. You're not aggressive at all." He even turned to ask me, "Right, Daniel?" I didn't dare agree. My back isn't good. Vivian laughed bitterly. "I'm not aggressive?" Then everyone listened carefully. She stood up on the table, her expression becoming ice cold. Colleagues didn't understand why. Tugging at my sleeve, "What's wrong with CEO Sullivan? She's not making us work overtime, is she?" But Vivian thought for a long time, only managing to say, "This afternoon tea. You all can't leave a single bite." She turned to ask the colleague, Do you still think I'm approachable now? The colleague smiled brightly, very approachable. Vivian's face grew even worse. She took a piece of cream cake, and in front of everyone called me into her office. I understood now. She saved approachability for other colleagues. And saved aggression for her master, right? I used to love cream cake. But now I didn't anymore. Because Vivian fed me until I was covered in cream. Before work ended, CEO Harper stormed over furiously, unable to believe the solidarity of our company. She'd posted private photos, yet not a single person wanted to jump to Harper Company. In fact, quite a few people who'd already applied withdrew their applications. She angrily ran to Vivian's office. Along the way, many colleagues looked at her with pity. When she knocked on the office door, Vivian's silver necklace was still hooked on my belt. I quickly hid in the bedroom inside the office. But CEO Harper said mockingly, "I know that's you, Daniel." She then asked Vivian if she'd been badmouthing her around the company. Vivian had just been satisfied, her expression still carrying a hint of lazy contentment, and didn't answer. I stepped out of the bedroom, explaining to her, "Don't waste your energy poaching Sullivan Company's employees anymore. Now everyone says you're not trustworthy." CEO Harper hadn't closed the office door. I stood there awkwardly, staring at the colleagues outside the door. I'd wanted to tell Vivian to close the door, but was so tense I said, "Kneel down," instead. I was done for. Being a master had become a habit, and Vivian had the conditioned reflex to kneel down immediately. Great, just great. The colleagues' cheers erupted like fireworks into the sky. They quickly reached a conclusion. I was the aggressive one. Only CEO Harper still wasn't convinced. She asked me, "Where does this Succubus's grade A evaluation beat my grade D?" I said, "Love can't be measured by evaluations." She asked me, "Then why am I not good enough?" I said, "Ask the secretary about that." Vivian hugged me from behind, her expression strangely expectant. "Do you have any other questions?" CEO Harper showed off her big legs again, grinding her teeth. Under the desk, Vivian had already wrapped her tail around my leg, showing signs of slowly creeping higher. Vivian let out a sigh of relief, as if she'd been waiting for this moment forever. She also showed off her legs, somewhat proudly lifting her head. "You don't understand at all. Being loved makes a succubus's horns grow like crazy. Through my master's cultivation, my legs have grown even bigger than CEO Harper's. Only I knew how much bittersweet pain and backache that contained." CEO Harper was clearly hurt. The next day, she posted on social media, "Sexy succubus online seeking master." The good news was her messages exploded. The bad news was, those messages weren't what she'd imagined. As for Vivian, finally getting the title she wanted, she was thrilled. I also got the kidney supplements I needed. We all had a bright future ahead. Sweet ending.